This little poem called Ginger Blossoms. That summer, we snipped blooming ginger stalks, divided up the shell-like blossoms, and placed fragrant blooms into water-filled vases. No one spoke of how each cluster would scent the air as the crow of the iridescent plumed rooster that you gathered in your arms for years. No mention of how waves of fragrance would paint the rooms of our memories, how your spirit would echo your love of summer swelter, echo love of digging hands into warm earth, urging bright growth. But we knew fingers of ginger flowers would thrill the air, like stitches through a sister's gown, like stitches through a young man's sleeve. And for years, as plaster walls crashed and steel towers shot up, as taxis circled the French Quarter and tankers cut through the industrial canal, as uptown accountants raced through red lights, you lifted eggs from beneath red hens, entered through the kitchen door. That morning, eggshell thoughts stuck to our tongues of your escape from rooted pain. We swallowed down words of our own. Still, your keen eyes peer through the screen door on Lion Street. Your silver braid wraps around your head as our words drift like down. Strong stalks, crowned in delicate petals, still sing your name.
Patrice, of course, runs the Festival of Words, an annual festival in Grand Coteau, a wonderful festival, up there in the rural area of literature and all kinds of spoken word and literary events. They bring writers to schools in the area. They have students doing drive-by poetry, reading throughout the area. And she's been, how many years has that been going on now? 7 or 8?
Yeah.
Very good.
It's not a math festival.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And they readers are also set to read for a certain number of minutes, and they are equally confused about numbers at that point. She runs a regular reading series up there, now at the Finstead Center, formerly at Casa Azul, which is where I first met Claire, when she did a reading up there at Patrice's Casa Azul store. Claire's book, it wasn't out yet. It's out now, Eating the Heart First. From Press 53, and I'm out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It is, how many pages? 70? Now she knows the numbers. 70 poems in 8 years of hard, committed labor, serious work, and honing her craft, and innumerable years of study before that. But 8 serious years of writing, revising, into these 70 pages, which is no small thing, and not unusual in a poetry book, though not every day either. Since that came out, she's begun work as the poetry editor of Mad Pat, an annual, and the editor of Mad Pat Lit, which is the regular twice a week subsidiary of the Mad Pat Annual. She has founded this reading series, and she has become indispensable and now does most of the work at the Acadiana Word Lab, the weekly-ish workshop series at the Acadiana Center of the Arts. She's done an enormous amount for poetry here in Acadiana, and is continuing to make a bigger impression on the national stage. Clare L.
After one panel of the triptych, Wrapped by Denise Gallagher, what I noticed is the cicada a light impression of ink, then the snake's impossible knot, a pin jabbed into the patterned green skin, a new mythology. The cicada, present like the one caught in the hem of my dress, croaking between my knees, a girlish scream. I am a woman, two snakes without poison, but sight enough to kill. I am bound to you in uneven grief, and let love, underground for years, alive for just one day. The hanging woman breathes desert into her throat, Golgotha naked, rapacious sun, spear opens rib, the most egregious of transgressions, lust inside out, lungs vigilant flag, serpentine intestine, nailed out muscles, heaven's jaw shuts. Born upon the cross, we cannot willfully die. The women tear their smocks, sun goes to terminal moonrise, burnt to bone. New meanings of the body impaled, all sensation thrust from pleasured skin, blade to stone, stone to bone, bone to blood night, incarnated, excarnated. They're just going to get more depressing from here. And Diane's going to pick us up. She's going to pick us way up. Behind the bars, gray, the walls, the slate sky, seeping through glass, a bed, rails of ants, sugar water in a tin cup, a naked boy, frail, just a man perhaps, wingless, undone with hunger, ignorant of all but this desire. Rust water, rust air. I turn to the wall. He slips canvas pants onto an iron post. He enters. The mattress is weeks old bread, and my back sobs. Back and forth, back and forth. He holds my waist. So much yearning in his movements, I cannot bear the weight. My back is sorrowful. I stare at the bare light that pulses with surges of power that snakes the city. The factory sings out another siren. Another man walks in, and another after him. The bed is soggy with their waste. I cry in the middle of it, and neither man notices. They go about their business and leave me, a scrap of their day, a human forgotten by fog. The baby crying and suddenly not. Told you it was just going to get worse. She was born off meds, weaned at 6 months on meds, not the right meds. At 2 on the kitchen floor, broken eggs in a pot, hungry, and I was too. Out of it, or when I was too out of it, my body sodden with the constancy of the bed. Couldn't find her forlorn toddler at the back door crying to be let in. She could have wandered into traffic, been abducted. I could have been jailed. A friend, now dead, said I was selfish to have her, that she was cursed because I loved the world too much and God not enough. I do believe in angels. I do. Because surely my dark life would have killed her. And yet she is here, a young woman full of grace and care, on a path with a way before her, and the good sense to have an open heart. Litany. This morning, the house empties its sugar. This morning, something good has gone to rot. This morning, fire catches the pillows under our heads. This morning, the ground quakes with your rising. This morning, the night no longer haunts the air. This morning, The mirror reflects another mirror. Who is there to see it? This morning we feed ourselves silence after silence. This morning we walk into spider webs. This morning the cup cracks. This morning a new sun. This morning the cat reveals her throat in a yawn. This morning crooked lines write themselves. This morning grief sours on our tongues. This morning is written on a blank sky. This morning a woman becomes more herself. This morning there are shards of china under our bare feet. This morning we leap into our sewing. I'm going to read a short prose piece, Dance. The room is brightest blue. She unzips her dress, slips it off her shoulders, steps out and carefully places it on the bed. She positions the arms of the dress, one up, one down. She imagines the empty dress spirited with life. She imagines the room is not blue, but black with bare red bulbs in the ceiling fixture. The room fills with music, woeful drumming and softly struck piano keys, only the sharp notes. She picks up the dress and sways with it. She puts her hands into the sleeves and wishes for a body to fill the velvet bodice and flowing skirt. The light is dim but bright enough to see a thin layer of dust on the cluttered vanity, the scars in the sunlight curtains. Her miserable cat, Mr. Bellows, claws the bedpost. The telephone rings. She shakes off her partner. Hello? It is not who she had hoped it would be. There is beeping on the other end, then a resonant dial tone. Time for fire. George says, stains of our existence. We were here, and there too our lives undressed, private visions via thick thin paint, via riotous bodies, via virulent voices. George paints himself. A man walks toward sunset, delineated by power lines. The man walks into heaven, that empty room, walls of light and rain. Rain sings on tin, cars whoosh, crashing waves, Joan says. Dogs bark at nothing or with predatory intent, and then silence, silence and cicadas and a hammer. Otherworldly energies. She is serene, ghostly slow drags, holds smoke in her discorder itself. We are suspended in delayed exhalation. The burden dissolves like wings in hydrochloric acid. The dead wolf Charles speaks of pads into the woods again and kills the milk-mouthed fawn. The raven proclaims, flies into storm with a ribbon of entrails. But no one speaks. To speak means death. Our footfall on the trail of the wolf, silent as cartoon Indians, no twigs underfoot. The fallen tree gone to rot is hard enough to bear us, and the mournful moon blesses our stained existence. I'm going to read one from the book, and then I'm going to introduce Diane, my great friend. And let's see, do we have any children here? Okay. Is it okay, Sylvia? Page 61. The poem I warned my mother about. That's why she's funny. Insomnia 2. These sleepless nights or blades, I'm awake as birth. All these hours I set fire to plastic kings, bulldoze their castles. I'm due a fuck-hard retribution, a comeuppance, and I'm waiting for it to kick in any minute now. Thank you. And tonight, we have Diane and I'm going to say a little bit about her. She's a writer of books, short stories, articles, and poetry, appearing in numerous literary journals, and she's published another young adult novel set in South Louisiana titled Martin and the Last Tribe this year, the third in a series about a young traitor hero, and her latest book of poetry, which she does have copies tonight along with other books, is In a Convent Garden. And I was very happy to write a piece that she was gracious enough to include, not as a sort of a little introduction in the book, and it was just a tremendous book, and she's tremendously talented, and she's been put in my path, went out of my path and came back in my path, and I'm very happy to have her here this evening. Diane M.
My mentor happens to be here tonight too, and has been at most of my readings lately. It's Daryl Ford, former poet laureate from Louisiana. So happy that he shows up to support me. Claire said that she was going to do this deep, dark poetry, and she told me that over the telephone, but we did not have any previous communication describing what the other one was doing. And I just happened to decide to do some ride poetry, W-R-Y. And I decided to do that without consulting her, and so she said that was great because it would be a contrast to what she did tonight. The word ride means words, thoughts, expressions contrary to that which is right or fitting, or just to twist out of shape or contort. But I prefer the third definition, which means to use irony. So a lot of these poems are that. And I'll read off from my latest book of poetry, which she talked about, called In a Convent Garden. It was written on the Cumberland Plateau in Swanee, Tennessee, which is where I live part of the year. I live the other part of the year in New Iberia, Louisiana. And a lot of these poems in this book were about Anglican nuns at a convent where I attend and worship there. But a lot of them were ride poems that had nothing to do with the nuns. And this one is a particular favorite of Anne Simon in New Iberia, and so I'm reading it in memory of Anne tonight. It's called Nocturne for a Hemlock, and I did bring along a picture because this is such a stately looking tree that I had to show you. This is in my yard, a big hemlock. It's about 100 feet tall. Foresters call it a superlative, the 100-foot hemlock tree, a green cathedral pyramiding in my backyard, now threatened by the hemlock woolly. But the traffic I observe underneath its lower branches tell me it does not have declining health. I have seen rabbits, coons, skunks, red foxes emerge from underneath its crown and wonder if it isn't an all-night tavern where creatures make music, dance, act out plays on a makeshift stage, having a desire for entertainment and happiness not unlike ours. Animals that come out of hiding at dawn, wearing carnival masks, weaving in the bright gleam of the lighted parking lot, passing out of view when the world is quiet. The hemlock keeping their secrets. A serious matter, these forest dwellers with nightly passions, although I sidestep their back rooms, unwilling to take a look into the tangled undergrowth for fear one of them is still there, leaning on the bar, singing, "Show me the way to go home," and I will have to oblige. This one is entitled Mystical Forest, and it was the second book that I published this year. And in this book, I think that this fits one of the ride descriptions that I just read to you. It's called The Chair of Poetry I Hold. The chair of poetry I hold, a faded red velvet Victorian armchair with rosewood arms and legs sprawled in my bedroom, provides communing space with Bronte, Browning, and Rossetti. both Victorian poets whose lyrics mock my free verse, my sitting place, a view of a tiled porch overlooking woods that do not fascinate these faultless romantics as they do me in my armchair watching randy squirrels chase tails in a disapproving ode. I think of Elizabeth lying abed, waiting for the step of Robert, sauntering in after a party she never felt well enough to attend, writing about clouds of sublime love above the slattern run of creatures like frisky squirrels dressed in filmy peignoir, smelling of the vapors that always assailed Victorian women. And my chair is overturned by poems rebelling against counting the ways of lofty lovers, their romantic notions having made valentines of fluttering pulses, irregular heartbeats, and chaste hand-kissing. Still, I sit in the same chair, waiting for the muse, the one who has evolved from being a damsel in distress to this present-day woman, her pen, a sword on the front lines of equal opportunity, airing uncouth imaginings and vulgar passions, daring to taste the plum of desire. In the same volume, one about my grandson Joel, who lives in California, who's 10 years old, and who suffers from chronic juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And this one is called A Call from Joel. I should have known when I gave him a wooden snake at age 4, an object that he would leave on the floor of my nightly bath and under my bed on Via Tranquilo Drive, that he would one day buy a corn snake to wrap around his loneliness. It runs in the family, this reptile obsession. His great-grandmother kept a pet garter snake in a primitive encampment of the Disneys, sport for a golden-eared scout, telling the story enough times for snakes to embed themselves in the consciousness of 3 generations. But what a multicolored snake will do for the heart, I do not know, except that both great-grandmother and my grandson were lonely, tend to tell all when conversing with anyone, and silent snakes make good audiences. Or perhaps both Dorothy and Joel trusted that living with a harmless snake posed a lot less threat than encounters with human beings coiled around their innocent play. This one is taken from an old book that was called Afternoons in Oaxaca, or Las Poesias. Name of your treat tonight has the word poesia. Okay, the first one is about a young lady that came every morning when we breakfasted on the Zacala Square and sat down at our table and made herself a nuisance until we bought something from her. And so the name of this one is called Christ's Vendor. Condi Lopez, the child necklace dealer, brought in an armload of new strands today. Jesus on a black string. Nada, nada, I have a cross, I said, fingering the finely wrought gold hilted one. She pulled me into the hotel lobby, held Jesus on a black string to the white light, streaming through the open door to the square. One brown eye closed, the other focused on a tiny glass peephole in the crucifix. Mira, she said, twirling around, knowing she had caught me again. Inside the peephole, a paper image of Cristo read, "Who takest away, who takest away, who takest away all the sins in the world, and to my pesos in the rate of 20 a day." Yeah, Condi Lopez, international necklace dealer. I'm glad you're sitting here tonight because you'll get to see what the cover of the book will look like. Daryl's wife, Karen, designed a glass piece especially for this, and Vicki took a photograph of it, and this is the cover of it. This book was authored by both myself and Janet Paul, Gonzalez, standing in the back of the book, and it's coming out shortly. So I want to read you the one short piece at the end of the book, and it's entitled The Ultimate Porch. When I think about the ultimate porch, the image that comes to my mind is not so much an aesthetic architectural form as a setting, a place where I could look out at dense woods and water beyond, or even an expanse of Joshua trees in the California desert, but preferably a porch located on a rising of some kind, a plateau or hill. It would be a space where I could get a focus on the heavens and feel the pulsating universe. I also think of the congenial people with whom I share the porch, or those who passed by the place where I sat eagerly watching for friendly faces, people who'd be inclined to come up the steps, sit down, and listen to one another, or to savor a mutual silence broken only by chanting cicadas on a summer evening. The ultimate porch would be open to the air, but shaded, facing north, and would have comfortable furniture. Rockers painted white or green, a slat-back swing, preferably a few canvas director's chairs like the ones we took with us on our trip to DYD, California, when I was 11. Plants would be scattered around its periphery, fern, potted begonia, mother-in-law tongue, or geraniums. The floor would be red Mexican tile or painted green, and the entire space would be wide and welcoming, its elevation at least 4 feet above ground. It would be a place to which people brought peace and conversation, laughter, and their willingness to take a time out. For me, the ultimate porch would also be a jewel haven in early morning hours, offering me a safe place where I could sit in silence, stilling the storm of some past suffering in my mind, expressing myself and writing all my senses, effortlessly taking in the scene around me, interrupted only by the squawk of a crow bringing me messages of affirmation. Mostly, I want to bring to it my longing to belong to friends, family, a community where, as C.S. Lewis said, we all saw the same truth, love. Evening would be the porch's best time, a time like that of an old memory, early dusk, when there was just enough light to read by, and my grandmother Nell and I sat together in a swing, reading from Stevenson's A Child's Garden of Verse. The world is so full of a number of things. I'm sure we should all be as happy as kids. I know that most of you are poets and writers, so you know who Charles Bukowski is, right? He lived in California. Scatological poet, elderly hippie, spent a lot of his time sitting in a rented room in LA, drinking beer and playing the horses and making women and writing poetry about all of that. People laugh at me because they can't connect me and Charles Bukowski, but I have every one of his books. And when I get to feeling real stiff, I need to be freed up, I go and read Charles and keep one of his books beside my bed. And so I didn't shock you earlier. Oh, no, okay. Have you read it? Yeah, oh, okay. Bookmarks. I don't know if St. Mary would appreciate the green and pink stones of her rosary marking the place in one of Bukowski's books. The particular line that defines a bag lady, which Mary by it was not. Bukowski would have been amused. His trenchant tongue would have said something about the similarities of St. Mary and the bag lady. How each character was disillusioned with the fate that had been dealt them. One, crucifixion of her son, the other, crucifixion by a bottle. It was an accident, my putting poet and singing together, marking a page with a rosary, an ecumenical one with silver inset and the Star of David. But it was all I had to work with, my shields against insomnia, the beaded tool of nightly prayer lying beside a mad poet's book. But perhaps they were destined to be together, mad poet and Jesus' mother. I wish that I could have heard their conversation, one embracing pain, the other avoiding it in drink. Perhaps they arrived at the same place, Bukowski talking about the next race, and no money to bet, and Mary telling him there's no sure thing in this life of suffering. Charles and Mary searching for the deliberate word, the strongest metaphor to describe their plight, and speaking at the same time, agreeing they were both partners, playing big parts in a bad plot. Okay, this one is a little heavier. It's not quite as dark as one of Claire's, but it's kind of dark. And it has to do with my tragic mother who lived in a dysfunctional family forever. It's called The Clothesline. This morning, when the sun came out after the siege of rain on the mountain, I thought about how it was a good day for my mother to hang out clothes. My mother is long dead, and the thought had no meaning, save for my epiphany that hanging dingy clothes on a line stretched between two poles was her salvation, her escape from an overcrowded house filled with querulous children, alcoholic husband, sticky floors, dirty plates, as Zorba the Greek said, the full catastrophe in a family of bad genes. The sun glinted on her frazzled face, drying all the disasters of the night, including the rain that dripped through the roof and onto her pillow, the awful noise of curses hurled at her and screaming children clinging to her skirt. I imagine the clothespins being the tools she used to hang each disaster, pinning them to the line firmly. This one out of mind, and certainly this one when he threw me down, trying to strangle me, that one for innocent children chased into the yard at midnight. She would spend an hour hanging clothes, the sun caressing her face and hands, a light that seemed to have a voice saying, there now, it will be all right, and if more is needed, gather up another washing, peg a few blissful dreams. We're almost there. It's another dark one, I guess you could call it, since it's entitled Hell. Hell must be the condition of being locked within the dungeon of your dreams, a continual ocean of bad memories flowing through a long summer night, starless, no windows in the room where you never come up to consciousness, the jellies of psyche ever vulnerable. In a turbulent sea of dead language, things undone, things left undone, life in a crowded tin of carnival freaks doing cartwheels in the sawdust of rejection, betrayal, desertion, abuse, an errant past, eternally alive. And this is the villain about my father, my very demurious father. It's called The Sanctity of Soap. What allegiance my father had to soap, keeping a tall mason jar of used slabs above the toilet, white, yellow, green, even the orange hues of life buoy, colorful birthday fruit in a jar, with definite limitations of scent after he had soaked his hairy chest and garnered the sweet smell of these dry, cracked pieces of hard-to-lather oblong, square slivers of ivory, saved against the day he might be unable to buy a packaged bar. Bathing was essential when all else failed. Clean the exterior, he'd say, although his interior, sullied with alcohol and temper, was no example of purity. When I was 11, 11, we went west, where he would stop the ford on the side of the desert, unfold 3 army pots, upending them to raise a stream behind which we bathed in a tin tub, and barring that, we'd suds up in a river like the Brazos or Rio Grande until we were pronounced like new, ready to ride again into the sunset, his rainbow adventure that produced no gold. I threw out the jar of soap when he died. By then, he had accumulated more interior layers of ill will than anyone could wash away. No brand could diminish the disasters he had caused. And today, when my soap washes down, gaining the size of a quarter, I toss it away, inwardly cringing over the lack of respect I showed on my father's sense of scarcity, his saving hope, his saving soap against the worst day. For those who think too much. She stood at the edge of the stage, top hat in hand, putting words into the hat and flipped it over, the words remaining inside. How did you do it? Someone on the front row asked. Sheer reductionism, she said, putting the hat on her head. She took a pair of gold scissors and cut a doily, jagged white lace to go around her neck. What for? Someone in the back row asked. A mere distraction, she said, throwing away the collar. She found newsprint dark on the bottom of her feet. Random headlines about plane crashes, earthquakes, terrors, and walked on them. They made a linoleum design she forgot to wash off. She forgot how to let little things bother her, spend her time reducing, distracting, walking over disaster, the power of thinking less and less, and doing random oddities, leaving her more and more